I've spent many times with e-commerce companies looking at knowing a revenue growth curve that we were trying to aim towards, because we knew that was an important story to tell to our investors. But we had to change a bunch of different metrics in our growth curves to get back to that. So the next step is to take this research that we've done and actually modify our forecast. Now we're doing this in two ways. We're both wanting to use our expanded data to help us change our inputs, but we're also trying to look to see what this actually means in terms of overall forecast. It may feel like you're just playing with numbers, but it's still a valuable process because it helps you understand, okay, this is actually how the model responds to these different channels. First thing we're looking to do is we're just going to go back to our base forecast and actually change the numbers. So we're going to go and change the numbers to say, hey, instead of expecting this metric, or instead of expecting a 3% growth, we think we can achieve 5% growth. We think that's a more valid thing. We're also going to go back and look to see the growth over time. Does that match back to our goal? If we had said we want to earn $25,000 throughout this time period, is it actually possible with the metric we put in there so far? We're going to go back to our model sheet, and we're going to look to see where do I have a relevant base to change any of these inputs. This is where it's particularly valuable that we've created this very detailed outline of our different assumptions, because now it helps us understand all the different levers that go into impacting revenues. So perhaps we have some data that shows for our holiday conversion rate could be 5%. We may just change that directly in the model. We may have some idea that we may change some of our product strategy, and perhaps we're going to launch a new shirt and then expand our product line in November, so we can increase our shirts per order. And we'll say this is a new product we'll always have. We'll increase our shirts per order for every month going forward. Conversion rate, we said it's going to be higher in December during the holiday season, but it's going to go back to normal thereafter. And perhaps it actually decreases a bit for a couple months early on before it goes back up later on as well. Web traffic, we may know, may grow substantially during holiday seasons. Perhaps it grows 7% and then 10%, but then goes back down to a 2% growth for after. Perhaps it may decrease in January. Maybe it decreases 10% before increasing 5% going forward again. So we can create this curve or change and shift in our metrics over time that'll impact the overall revenues. I like doing scenario analysis because this is where you're actually having to make real business decisions. We use scenarios in a couple different ways. A simple way to do that is to create best and worst case scenarios. And the way to do this is, now that we have a simple base structure, we can simply duplicate the sheet and rename it. We may rename this to best case. And we can change all the metrics in here to fit what our best case expectations are. Perhaps we want to evaluate the business for growing 10% a month with a 4% conversion rate. And we can therefore, perhaps we want to look to see what happens if we're able to get three shirts sold per order. And so now we have a base estimate which shows, so now we have a best case, and we can look to see some of the total numbers here, 24,000 in revenues over 12 months, compared to our base expected case, which was only 18,000 over the next 12 months. The best and worst cases become important because no one's going to believe a financial projection you create. So it's almost important to create a boundary or range of potential things. But almost more meaningful than that is other scenarios that can be tied to business decisions. We may create a scenario which says, hey, what happens if we take a growth strategy which is very based on Facebook ads? What happens if we create a growth strategy which is based upon channel partnerships and hiring a sales team to go through different avenues? Maybe I spend my time on launching more products so that people have more things to buy. Maybe I raise my prices or lower my prices or lower my costs. A common way to think about that is you'll take a metric and increase it by X%. You say, hey, if I increase growth by 10% from what it's showing now, what's going to be the impact on the bottom line? If I increase prices by 10%, what's going to be the impact on the bottom line? Try to see, okay, these different metrics, if I change these, what's going to have the biggest impact on the overall business. And that's a fun process because we're having to think and use the model to say, what should we actually do?